Hey everybody, welcome back to C.Dat.Guy Review Movies. My name is Christian, and today I'll be going over The Invisible Man. Wait, something doesn't look right. Alright, I guess that's better. Did you really think I was going to do this review Invisible? The Universal monsters have been a huge staple in the horror cinema, and I'm talking about the classics like Dracula, Wolfman, Frankenstein, Creature from the Black Lagoon, and The Phantom of the Opera, which have all had their time in the 1920s up until the mid-50s. And there was even a remake era in the 2000s with the Mummy franchise and Van Helsing being the standouts. Each creature had so many sequels and spin-offs that when you combine all their movies into one giant franchise, it dwarfs DC movies, X-Men, James Bond, and for now, the MCU. And speaking of the MCU, with their popularity, it looked like Universal decided to copy their idea and unite the monsters in their own shared universe. They kind of tried to do that with 2014's Dracula Untold, but it didn't do well critically or financially. And they tried to establish the Dark Universe officially, once again, with 2017's The Mummy, but unfortunately, not even Tom Cruise's star power could save the movie. And the Dark Universe failed before it could even start, and Universal decided it was best to keep the monsters separate moving forward. Look, I didn't watch any of the reboots, but when I heard that The Invisible Man was going to be a standalone movie, produced by Blumhouse and directed by Leigh Whannell, who I've apparently liked since his contributions to the first Saw movie, the Insidious franchise, and 2018's Upgrade, I was all in. And so, with all these things lined up, does The Invisible Man live up to the hype? Well, let's find out. What I really appreciate about Blumhouse Productions as a studio is that they rarely go beyond $10 million in terms of their production budget, and while not every single movie is a critical success, they rarely lose money at the box office, and this limited budget also really allows their writers and directors to be really creative with what they got. And I definitely saw the creativity here because this movie manages to keep the spirit of the original story while giving it a fresh update. And right from the beginning, you have this a quiet place or don't breathe kind of tension. And when you have a character that's invisible, this tension is going to last until the whole movie. And not only was it driven by the silence and the suspense, but by the drama as well. Elizabeth Moss does a great performance as Cecilia, who is a woman who's desperately trying to leave her abusive boyfriend. And I'll be honest, I haven't seen her in much. I've only watched her in Us and this little horror anthology show called Fear Itself. I haven't watched her performances in Mad Men or The Handmaid's Tale, but I know she's received several Emmy, Golden Globe, and SAG nominations and awards for her acting, and I'm sure whatever she did to get those awards is what she brought into this movie. She portrayed so many emotions at once, whether she was scared or angry or upset, and for a while there's like a fine line on whether she felt like she was in control or she was imagining things. It almost felt like watching Toni Collette's performance in Hereditary, but instead of a ghost it's an invisible man, but you could truly feel for her character as an abuse victim for the most part, but for me, I wasn't sure whether to look at her with pity or just wonder about her insanity. Her sister Emily and cop friend James, played by Harriet Dyer and Aldous Hodge respectively, did a great job playing off Cecilia as they're trying to support her cautiously and trying to determine if she was crazy or not. And Storm Reed, who played James' daughter, gave a really good scared performance. Nowhere near Scream Queen status, but it's a start. The story goes like this. Cecilia leaves her house, and her boyfriend Adrian almost catches her, but she manages to escape with her sister. And 2 weeks later, she is told that Adrian has committed suicide and left $5 million in his will to her. And despite being told this, she sees weird things happening around her, and she is convinced that Adrian, being an intelligent man and a master manipulator, is still alive and stalking her. When she concludes that Adrian has somehow become invisible, people think she's losing it, so it's up to her to determine if her suspicions are true or if the abuse really messed with her head. Cecilia's determination is the major driving point of this movie, and whenever new information was dropped, the tension and the suspense just kept on building. And what really helped that was the camera work and the way it was moving. It was like you couldn't tell if it was from the perspective of the invisible man sneaking around or just a tracking shot following the people in the scene. You weren't sure if Cecilia was truly alone or they just wanted to get a shot of the whole room. It really played with your mind. Important details were carefully laid out in certain shots and cleverly in the dialogue, and while the movie had jump scares, they were few and they weren't cheap, they really earned them, but the movie didn't rely on them. In my opinion, the stakes were raised starting with the restaurant scene, and I won't reveal any spoilers, but I think that caught everyone in my theater off guard. And once it starts getting to the final act, the movie starts moving really fast to the point where I think there were some details that didn't make sense logically. And when there was a specific reveal, I had to backtrack a bit to be sure I was understanding all the information as presented because I felt like I was missing something, or maybe the detail was just invisible, but the ending was still very effective. While there were a few details that didn't really pay off, and the music was a bit loud and overbearing at a few points, overall I still left the theater a bit shaken. And I haven't felt like that since watching something like Gone Girl or The Gift. And it didn't really scare me as a horror movie, but if I'm comparing it to Gone Girl or The Gift, that means it functioned tremendously as a thriller. I'm giving this movie a 9 out of 10 for its atmosphere, a stellar performance from Elizabeth Moss, great camera work, and a well put together story. This is probably my number one of the year so far, and I highly recommend this to any horror thriller fan. And even though there is about 7 other horror movies that aren't doing so hot in 2020, but this one definitely blew them all out of the water. Alright, so this is my review of The Invisible Man. What do you think? Do you agree or disagree? Let me know in the comment section down below. And go ahead and give this video a thumbs up or a thumbs down, I really don't care. But if you want to see more movie reviews, you can click up here for the subscribe button, or up here for one of my other ones right now. Other than that, I hope to see you in the next one. Bye!